You are the Canadian Donation and Transplantation Research Program. You are CDTRP.
The CDTRP is a network of more than 400 clinicians, senior, mid, and early career researchers, trainees, patient, family, and donor partners, and 100 partner organizations. Our network has supported 275 collaborative research projects and has mobilized research into policy change, legislation, commercial products, and improved knowledge for patients, families, and donors. Every year, CDTRP supports between $30 to $40 million in grant applications, something around 60 to 70 individual applications. You are CDTRP. These achievements wouldn't be possible without your hard work.
CDTRP Research Services is a platform that supports principal investigators to develop high-quality research in donation and transplantation. We work hand-in-hand with CDTRP investigators to maximize the effectiveness of research teams through support with funding development, project management, patient, family, and donor partnership, knowledge mobilization, events, and trainee support. Across the 5 research themes, we help teams mobilize new knowledge to ensure patient-family donors, healthcare systems, partners, and stakeholders equitably benefit from research results.
If you are a basic scientist and would like support with your knowledge mobilization plan, if you are a busy clinician scientist with limited time for research but would like to run a multi-site study, if you are an early career researcher and looking for collaborators to help with your grant applications, if you value patient, family, and donor engagement, but are not sure how to find the right patient partners or what role they will have in your project, if you don't have full-time research staff but need support,
we are here to help. Our experienced management team can support you at every stage of your research in donation and transplantation.
Now you are probably thinking, how can I request CDTRP Research Services support? The answer is simple. Go to the CDTRP Research Services Platform website, fill out the form to request support, and we will get in touch with you to discuss your needs. That's it.
We.
Nous.
Noi.
Nos.
Emis.
Nosotros.
Menk.
Piano. We. Piano.
Our CDTRP, and we will drive research advances so that every wish to donate is fulfilled and transplantation becomes a lasting and sustainable cure.
You are CDTRP.
Email us today.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lindsay Thompson, and I would like to welcome you all to the 2025 Patient Family Donor Research Forum. And I'm the CDTRP's Patient Family Donor Partner for Theme 4, Building a Better Immune System, and also on the PFD Partnership Platform. Briefly, my transplant history is I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in 2007, and I received a bone marrow transplant in 2008. I was never able to go back to work post-transplant, And since then, I have been living with the effects of graft versus host disease, which in the blood cancer world is the opposite of graft rejection that happens in solid organ transplants. We're really pleased that you have, sorry, I'm trying to read my notes. Pleased that you've decided to join us and spend some time with us this year. We have a really exciting program during today. And before we start, we would like to do the CDTRP land acknowledgement. The CDTRP is hosted by the University of Alberta, and we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional and ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples. We recognize the deep histories, cultures, and contributions of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have cared for these lands since time immemorial, and whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. I encourage you all to take the time to share your territory on Chatbox so we get a sense of where everybody is from in this wonderful country of ours. We would also like to extend our thanks to Astellas for their generous support as a friend of the 2025 PFD Forum. We're also grateful for our partnership with the Caribbean African Regenerative Medicine Group, who will be joining us during the second session of the day to share their insights. Please now join me in welcoming Sandra.
Thank you, Lindsay. Just as you read the land acknowledgement, I also wanted to acknowledge all the provinces across Ontario, across Canada, that are having wildfires. My thoughts go out with them, and I hope that everyone is safe and that the fires will stop eventually. Thank you everyone for joining us as we work together to strengthen patient engagement and ensure our experiences help enhance research. So my name is Sandra Holdsworth, and I'm the Theme 5 co-lead for long-term outcomes. And I'm also, as Lindsay said, the co-chair of the PFD Partners Platform. My lived experience is as a 28-year liver transplant recipient. I developed stage 4 kidney disease due to my long-term use of immune suppressant medications, and also stage 4 fibrosis of my liver, which is referred to as cirrhosis. I'm currently on home hemodialysis, waiting for a new liver and kidney. I'm fortunate to be part of the CDRP since 2014, and I was there in 2016 when CDTRP first developed the Patient Family Donor Platform. I've had the pleasure of working with several researchers across Canada, and my current experiences are very rewarding. However, it took some time to get there. The PFD partnership is also co-led by Dr. Shaifali Sandral. Although she is unable to join today due to clinical responsibilities, her commitment to patient engagement has brought forward new innovative ideas to the platform. So now let's talk about the event. Throughout today, you'll have the opportunity to contribute directly to ongoing research projects, patient engagement, and knowledge mobilization efforts. Through our 3 interactive sessions, our goal is to build capacity and patient engagement within the transplant ecosystem, and hear directly from PFD partners, researchers, clinicians, and trainees about your priorities. We have 3 sessions as part of today's PFD Research Forum. In a few minutes, we will start with the session led by myself, Lindsay, and Manuel. I'll say his last name too, Escoto. This 1-hour session focuses on supporting CDTRP's PFD, oh, that's a big word for there, right? CDTRP's Patient Family Donor Partnership Platform, proper way to say it, develop resources and guidance to build patient engagement capacities within the network. Then between 12:30 and 2:30, we will welcome Dr. Jackie Getfield from CARM, the organization that Lindsay just mentioned, along with Patricia McKenzie and Dr. Arlen Chris for conversations about health in Black communities, patient choice, facts, myths, and fear. And then after a 30-minute break, we will host a national COVID-19 prioritization session from 3 to 4:30. This session will provide an update on Treat COVID, and you will help researchers understand your priorities when it comes to COVID, communications, and health information needs. This will be an update on an ongoing project that's been going on for a few years now. The full program can be viewed on the CDTRP website. The link will also be shared in the chat. During the presentations, please feel free to ask questions and make comments as we go along. Don't be shy. You can either post your questions on the chat box, send them anonymously to CDTRP Q&A, or just raise your hand to make a live comment. Someone will recognize you. This is a friendly reminder to all speakers to respect their allocated time so that we can do our best to adhere to the program timeline. Now I turn it over to Manuel.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandra and Lindsay, for those introductions. And of course, thanks everyone for taking time out of your busy days to join us this morning and throughout the day. As my colleagues have noted, my name is Manuel Escoto, and I'm the Director of Patient Family Donor Partnerships and Knowledge Mobilization with the Canadian Donation and Transplant Research Program. I've been with CDTRP since 2011, and alongside my professional experience and of course passion in patient community engagement, research, and policy, I also bring a personal and lived connection to this work. I'm an 18-year transplant recipient, thanks to a living donor who is also my mom. So very happy and thrilled to be working in this field and alongside all of you. But let's get started with today's session. As Sandra and Lindsay outlined, co-creating guidelines for meaningful engagement in patient, family, donor, and meaningful engagement with patient, family, and donor partners. So CDTRP's patient family donor platform leads, we're really thrilled to be hosting this interactive session today. We really encourage you to speak once the opportunity comes for you to engage and speak. So please don't be shy. Because together we're focusing on understanding what your priorities are. These are your priorities. What we're trying to understand are the tools that will help you do work better. For those of you who might not be as familiar with CDTRP, one of our goals is to ensure that PFD, so patient family donor voices, aren't just included, but they're central to what we do, that their priorities are reflected in the work that we do. And this is why this session is so important. As was mentioned, the platform is working on new tools and resources to support meaningful engagement across all of our network activities and across the projects that we support. But these tools are only going to be useful if they're shaped by people who actually use them. So that's you on the call who have decided to spend some time with us today. And again, very, very thankful for that. So not only is your input really needed, but it's essential for us to do this work. Because what you share with us will really influence how we support engagement and how we continue to support engagement across our donation and transplant community. So whether you're a patient partner, researcher, clinician, family member, trainee, research staff, we're a big tent here. Your experiences and insights are really going to be helpful. In the link right now, my colleague Marie-Claire is going to share a couple of links. So they're links to surveys. So these are surveys that we distributed in the past, and you'll see some of the early results now. But if you haven't had a chance to complete these surveys, please do. It should take about 10 minutes, and they're really going to be it's really going to be important for us to really to guide this work that we're going to be doing. Thank you, MC, for doing that. So please share your perspectives and pick the link that is relevant to your role. So whether you're a PFD partner or whether you're a research staff. So again, thanks for being here. We're excited to To get started with the work that with our presentation today, before we get into the survey results and before we get into the group discussion, we want to really bring it back a little bit and have our excellent co-leads here really share some of their perspectives. We know meaningful engagement doesn't happen by accident. It's when people, staff, whether that's CDTRP or project teams, everybody involved is intentional. When we're listening, when we understand and value different perspectives, and when we create and co-create that space for trust and collaboration. So as I said, before we go into this discussion, let's spend some time hearing from Sandra and Lindsay, who just bring a tremendous amount of wealth and knowledge to this topic. So for about the next 10 to 15 minutes, I invite you to listen and reflect on what you hear from our patient partners, and think about what it means for your own research partnerships, whether you're already in the midst of a project, whether you're planning for a project, whether you're looking for that right patient partner opportunity for you. Let's take some of these reflections and see how we can utilize that into the work that we're doing. Of course, I have no doubt you'll have questions based on what you hear. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat, or also save them for when we enter our group discussion for about the last 30 minutes of this session. So with that, Lindsay, Sandra, you're up. I'm going to put some guiding questions on the board here. I turn it over to you. So reflecting on your past involvement in research, whether that's with CDTRP or other groups, can you share your personal experiences as to what it means to be a PFD research partner? Whoever wants to jump in.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
I thought that was your question.
Well, yeah, okay. I'll take it. Yeah, okay. So my engagement in research actually started innocently. It was just another opportunity to come and share my story. But what this was about was it was under the leadership of Sunita Mahar and Tanya Janyas Ferreras. I'm not saying her name very good. I'm sorry for that. But two amazing researchers. One was out of Toronto and one is still out of McGill. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to bring together everybody that was working in transplant to start research to show the importance of physical therapy pre and post transplant. So I was just there to share my experience, and basically I shared it, and then I gave them suggestions on moving forward, because there wasn't a lot. I was basically told to go home and not get sick. There was no opportunity to, think about doing exercises and that. And it was interesting because I sort of faded away and lost a lot of muscle mass waiting for my liver transplant. And so from there, we got to go and present at the CST and so the Canadian Society of Transplantation in February of 2014. And that's where I got to meet people like, meet the leader of CDTRP, Laurie West, and at the time, David Hartel. And I was really connected to what they were doing and sort of hung around till they found something for me to do, I guess is a way to say it. But it's been my pleasure to be, leading theme 5, which is long-term outcomes, which is actually before was Project 7, which was all similar about, physical therapy, mental health, and nutrition. And, we're working towards more of a holistic approach to add other things like social determinants of health and spiritual and, other things that make us up as patients, other than just our blood numbers or our results of our tests. So I got involved just with mostly research with exercise and nutrition, but then I started getting involved with donor intervention with Dr. Maureen Mead, and that was really interesting. And then I started doing some work at a UHN with Dr. Mamitha Bat on the MELD score for liver, which is, it used to be the Mayo end-stage liver disease score, and I think it's now called MELD NA, which includes sodium. But this score wasn't something that was even around when I had my transplant, but basically, research has shown that there's some discrepancies to how it is measured for women, where we sort of don't, it's not fair for us and stuff. So she's been working on something called Dynameld, which is another way of looking at the scores. And then through there, I got involved in AI and transplant and things like that. But just to wrap it up, one of the things I did find in all the work I was doing with CDTRP is that a lot of things that we were trying to change required our healthcare system to change. And that's when I took a switch. I still stayed involved with CDTRP and still there today, obviously. But I got involved with more of health system transformation and system change. And I've been fortunate to do that with our Minister of Health here in Ontario. I also belong to a large network of patient and caregiver providers under the network of Patient Advisors Network. And we've got lots of opportunities to be at tables where, systems are being looked at and things like that. So, yeah, it's been a good experience, but all the things that we're going to talk about are still there. I was even up early this morning listening to I don't know what the acronyms are, patient engagement, but they just call them the PEOF, and I'll have to look it up, but they're in Italy right now. And it was interesting to hear them. This is a national group that was still talking about problems with getting patient engagement and citizen involvement happening. And most of us here in this field, to us, it's just like, let's just get her done and let's do it. I did make a quote. I did say something at the Ontario Sports Support Unit. We had an opportunity to talk about our report on what the future looks like for patient engagement and research. And I just said, I don't want to see any more research on patient engagement. I mean, obviously, I want to see it on impact and stuff, but I don't want to see any more. I just want to implement it and then do it and then measure its impact. But you know how many times it's like there's more people that are doing it and stuff. So I'll leave it there. And Lindsay, I'll pass it over to you since I don't think we have a lot of time on this subject.
Yeah, and I'll just very quickly say that, the one thing I've learned since I joined CDTRP back in 2018 is that it doesn't matter what type of transplant you've had, solid organ, stem cell tissue. The issues are the same when it comes to research. The issues are the same trying to find people willing to volunteer to take on these tasks. But if you are driven the way, say, Sandra and I are, to be involved in this field, and you start digging to find where you might be able to get engaged and assist, you then start to find that it doesn't, like I say, I mean, I'm a blood bone marrow transplant recipient, but I've helped on kidney disease learning education tools. It's the same issues. So no matter what kind of transplant has brought you to the table today, you can assist across the board. And the assistance we desperately need. And so do the principal investigators, because it's the one thing we're hearing now is they're having a tough time finding patient partners. So I will leave it at that. So the next question was, what makes a partnership meaningful versus tokenistic? I would say initially that I think part of that is principal investigators maybe not aware of how much patient partners or patients with lived experience can actually bring to the table. We're not scientists, but we are the other side of the story, the other side of the coin. And we can assist you in your research from the very beginning. Like once when the light bulb goes on that the research has been identified, a need for more information has been identified, that's the time to engage patient partners. That's the time to start getting the word out, maybe through CDTRP, through disease support groups, that you're looking for partners. Because if we come in at the very beginning, we can help with the focus. As I'm going to give I'm going to give an example. A group that I was asked to join out of UBC started almost 3 years ago. We still haven't started the project, but myself and another patient partner were identified right at the beginning to bring patient experience to that project. We were engaged, we were advised what was expected of us, we were given our contact person, we were told if there was going to be an honorarium. It was all made available to us right at the very beginning. And then we've gone through the process of going from a basic grant, like seed money, to getting bigger grants and getting the labs set up across the country so that hopefully by the fall of this year, 3 years later, we will be able to roll out this project. That is a meaningful partnership because we've been engaged all the way. We maybe only hear from the team once a year with an update, but they know where we are. We know what it's going on, and eventually we're going to get really busy with it. Tokenism to me is a mad email request from CDTRP, from Manuel or somebody else. We've just had a request for a grant application. They need something in a week. Can you get your CV done? Can you write your letter of support? Oh, no problem. I have nothing else to worry about. I don't have health issues. I'll get right on it. Tokenism. And having said that, I have to bite my tongue and also say that sometimes it's not tokenism, sometimes it's reality. It's grants availability isn't always well advertised, and it becomes a very last minute panicky event. Oh my God, there's a grant we can apply for. Oh my God, it's due next week. And as long as that's made clear to us, then we don't feel like it's tokenism. We're there to help and want to be engaged from the very beginning. One of the roles that I've done a number of times with CDTRP, but also with a couple of other groups, patient groups that I'm involved with, or research groups, is grant application reviews. And many of the grants that we see, that we get to look at, we're looking at the lay summary. We're not reading the scientific paper. It's all about the lay part of it. And that's what we comment on. But even when we're talking about basic science projects, about bench science in the laboratories, there's input there for a patient partner. Although there's no patient engagement during the research, if we are brought in on those initial studies, we often can give input to say, okay, we get this as a basic idea, but what is going to be your step 2? Where do you foresee going with it? Because when you build that into your grant application, you're going to get better points because you've already engaged partners in a bench project. So we'll move on
Thank
from
you,
there.
Lindsay. Mhm. I'll take the last one, and then I think we'll pass it over to Manuel to go through
Yep.
the survey results and give some time at the end for more interaction. So, why is it important? Well, yeah, it's a no-brainer, but why is it important to? I'm not seeing the whole thing here, but yeah. So, to get all perspectives, to get all sides of everyone's ideas, and it's a collaboration, and it just you come out with a better product when this is done. So we saw this when we did the peer review training program with Kidney Foundation and CanSolve and ourselves. But yeah, and we'll show you some success as we move through the survey and get into some good discussion. Over to you, Manuel.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sandra and Lindsay, for sharing your experiences and the content. Like, when we're developing tools, when we're having these conversations, and it really is about having like open and honest conversations. I'm glad you mentioned the innovation grant or the training that we've provided, and also apologies for those last minute scramble emails I sometimes send Lindsay. But thank you for sharing your experience, and we want to build on what we've heard. Like a lot of what you've said, the two of you have said right now, really is reflected in the survey and survey results. So let's build on what we heard by looking at the experiences that we gathered through the survey. The survey really was intended to give us a chance to hear from the broader CDTRP community to identify some of the key themes, and you've already outlined a lot of these key themes. As we review the survey results, really encourage you again to see how the responses relate to what you've heard from Sandra, what you've heard from Lindsay, your own personal experiences. The goal here isn't just for me to come on and say, this is what we heard. It's really to listen, to learn, and think about what actions we can take to do better, as a network to do better, in my role to do better, as research teams to do better, and as PFDs as well, to do better, so we can all collectively support PFD engagement a little bit stronger. So let's look at what the survey told us. So we'll begin with what challenges we heard. So as has been said, when engagement doesn't feel meaningful, it really causes frustration and disconnection. PFD partners shared that their feedback sometimes might go unanswered or unacknowledged, and this just continues that tokenistic feeling. It creates a sense of, that we're here, but we're here just out of formality. We're here just to check a box, rather than being here for our lived experiences and for our valued contributions. We heard how discouraging it can be to be brought on late in the process, as Lindsay just outlined, when timelines are tight and it's almost impossible to really offer that thoughtful input. So again, I agree with what was said, bringing PFDs from the very beginning, when there's a funding opportunity or when that idea is brewing, bring PFDs on board. And then when you do bring PFDs on board, ensure that the roles aren't vague or that they're not symbolic, because when they are, it really undermines trust. We heard that even when compensation is offered, it sometimes feels like PFDs might still be excluded from actual influencing the project, which signals that, again, PFDs aren't equal partners. And one of the questions that we added at the bottom that came from the surveys directed specifically to our research partners here, when do you feel it's most appropriate to include PFDs, and why? And think about that, and we can circle back to that for the group discussion. So now these challenges also highlight the importance of laying that strong foundation. PFDs want to know what their role is, what they're going to expect, how long they're going to be involved. PFDs want and need support to ask questions and sometimes navigate unfamiliar research spaces. Lindsay, again, you talked about bench science. Sometimes given your lived experience, you've supported kidney health research, for example, and sometimes that's unfamiliar. That's an unfamiliar space. So providing that additional opportunities for conversations outside of your traditional project meetings or steering committee meetings to have that one-on-one interaction with your PFD partners. But it's not also just about equipping PFD partners. Researchers need training too, and that's one of the purposes of our conversation today in our PFD forum sessions every day. Researchers need training on how to engage and how to create that space for co-leadership and how to really implement true collaboration. So it's really about shifting a mindset from simply involving PFDs to empowering where both sides are successful. We heard loud and clear communication matters. If there's long silences in project updates or no responses or unclear responses, it really does discourage future participation. And our PFD partners also told us that there's a need for research teams to provide open, timely, and again, that responsive communication that's respectful of everybody's time involved in the projects. So what we're hearing is a call for more intentional and collaborative planning. This is where patient engagement plans matter. Happy to say CDTRP does a fantastic job of supporting researchers and PFDs in the co-development of patient engagement plans, but that's what we heard. Patient engagement plans matter, and they have to be co-developed with clear tasks, time commitments, and compensation discussed up front. The clarity when the PFD partner goes into a role really helps build that trust and keeps everybody accountable. And just as important, it's to show when feedback is heard and when it's used. One of the quotes that came to the survey was, even a simple update saying, we've made this change based on your input. Or on the other side, we cannot incorporate this feedback because, whatever the reason is, really shows PFDs that the research team is listening. PFD engagement isn't a one-size-fits-all sort of approach. PFDs bring different communication styles, interests, capacities, as was noted earlier. This means, a need for teams, for the network to share materials early, offering options for follow-up, and really recognizing the value of providing both written and verbal feedback. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody has a different comfortable level when it comes to providing that feedback. Some might be comfortable providing it in a big group setting like this. Others might prefer one-on-one support. So just being flexible in how you receive feedback if you're asking for that feedback. Also, there's a need to create space for growth. What's the project? Are there skill sets that PFDs need to build to better support this? It's about asking PFDs what they want to learn and offering those opportunities to build new skills to contribute. And then PFDs finally highlighted several logistical needs, ensuring that they have opportunities to prep before meetings, receive materials in advance, to review and ask questions, and again, just provide that space for discussion and questions outside of your typical project calls. This slide highlights several themes that we've already shared and touched on, but they continually appear. It really highlights the important steps that we need to do to plan for successful partnerships. This is where we move more from like a reactive engagement to proactive planning. And again, I will stress patient engagement plans matter. So before inviting someone to join, as noted in the last slide, really clarify what's involved. For those who are unaware, I always love doing a quick plug-in. CDTRP does have a patient portal, and see if you can add a link to the patient portal in the chat. But we do have a patient portal that provides an online space for researchers to add their patient engagement opportunities, and for PFDs then to go on there and see what options are available and what the time commitment means, what's expected of them, what are the roles, what's compensation look like. All those questions are answered in these in the online portal form. PFDs also ask for an initial orientation so they can understand what the type of research and what kind of input is actually needed. Based on that conversation, co-create an agreement. Again, cover things like responsibilities, authorship, timelines, compensation. Another key piece that came out through the survey was matching. And what I mean by that is really aligning. There seems to be a preference to align to somebody's lived experience or interest with a project when that lived experience is matched. For some PFDs, they feel more connected and confident to support. Outreach matters. I know I just plugged the patient portal, but on the flip side, we can't just wait for PFD partners to check the portal. So a need for ongoing targeted emails, tailored opportunities, and just letting our network members and patient partners in general know of what's out there and see what piques their interest. We also have a responsibility to close the loop. And what I mean by this is provide opportunities for PFDs to contribute to knowledge translation efforts and really celebrate successes. So once a project's done, once we have our outputs, let's celebrate that, and let's celebrate that together. Let me go on to the next slide. So what's working well? Well, despite some of the challenges that we've talked about, there is a lot to celebrate. Through the survey, many of our PFDs told us that they do genuinely feel supported by CDTRP. They feel listened to. They've seen their ideas shape the direction of research. they've also appreciated the chance to be part of different types of projects. So whether that's from early design, grant applications to conference presentations, and really this variety of involvement not only keeps PFD partners involved, but it also shows that their lived experiences are valued. And for many, this work also has a personal meaning. We're all connected to this some way or another. And Lindsay, I love what you said earlier about, just because of our personal lived experience doesn't mean we can't contribute to other projects that might be outside of that. But we've seen firsthand, and our partners have shared with us, our PFD partners have shared with us firsthand, how their stories and lived experience and expertise have led to improvements, and how research has really made a difference in the project and in real world impacts. And Sandra, you talked about that a little bit in the first Q&As. We're trying to continuously improve. I'm not going to sit here and say we're perfect and we don't make mistakes. So it's recognizing where we can do better. And as we continue to grow this work, again, being honest about where things are, where we can improve, we need that feedback. The good, the bad, and ugly, we need that feedback because that's going to make us do better work. Some PFDs have shared that they still sometimes feel tokenized. They're invited to the table, but they're not always heard. And a reoccurring theme that does pop up is the importance of involving more than one PFD partner. It's a question I often get from researchers: is how many PFD partners should I get involved in? And I love that this was shown through the survey, is to involve more than one PFD partner on a project. It helps avoid tokenism, but it also creates a bit of peer support. It's a little unfair to just have one PFD partner feel like they have to carry that entire weight of a community on their shoulders because they're the lone voice. So we need more than one. And above all is to ensure that PFD voices are influencing our work. You're not there, we're not there just to meet funding requirements. When PFDs know that their time and insights lead to action, that's when partnership really is going to begin. So I thank everybody for completing the initial set of surveys. My colleague has put the links in there, so if you want to contribute, you can still contribute your thoughts and ideas through those links. But next part of the session is where we open up to you. So if you feel comfortable, turn on your cameras and please contribute to the next set of questions that we're going to ask. We really want this to be interactive. This is your chance to go from listening to us. You've been listening to us for about the last 25, 30 minutes to co-creating. These tools and resources, as we said from the beginning, are going to be shaped by you. So we do need your perspectives. Whether you've been involved one project, many projects, this is your first time hearing about patient engagement and the CDTRP, your voice still matters because your input, still matters. I know it can be intimidating to speak up, so we're grateful for anything you're willing to share. If you want to add your comments in the chat box, by all means, add your comments to the chat box. And please note that there are no wrong answers. We want to know your reflections. However long or short they are, we want to know your reflections because that's going to help us do better work. So with that, I'll open up the floor. I'm going to put up a set of guiding questions, but feel free to build on each other. These are guiding questions, and I really hope we have a really robust conversation. There's two sets of guiding questions. I'll put on this first screen for about the first 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'll switch it to the other screen. But let's begin. For folks on the call, and of course Sandra and Lindsay, if we want to get started as well, here's some questions that we have. What's worked well for you? In your partnerships, what has worked well for you when you've started a project? Can you describe a time where you felt valued? And what made you feel that way? What was it that the research team did? Was there some sort of guidance that you were provided? What made that experience a positive one? And at the same time, when have you experienced a time where you perhaps felt minimized? And of course, we don't have to reference any projects or any names or anything like that, but it's just about your experiences. So open up the floor to everybody on the call here. And again, turn on your cameras if you wish. We'll give it a moment here to get things rolling. And I see Sheldon. Thank you, Sheldon, for raising your hand, and I pass it over to you.
First of all, thank you, Manuel, Sandra, Lindsay. This is my first time here. I had my liver transplant 7 weeks ago. So I'm very blessed to be at home. And Yeah, so it's been a beautiful story for myself. But when you talk about needing, and I had somebody from my pre-transplant, a lady that I met, I had something called PBC, which happens in about 91% women and 8% men. So, but so I met a lady through through having a dinner pre-transplant, and we just became like this. And then post-transplant, she's been an unbelievable support level for Sheldon, incredible. And then there just happened to be on last weekend a PBC conference, people coming from all over, and that support there and listening to other people's stories, waiting, pre, post, people that don't need it at all because it's controlled by medication, all the doctors that came and spoke from Texas, from Edmonton, from just all over. I'm in Toronto, by the way. And then exchanging all the phone numbers, exchanging emails, and help each other, support each other in whichever way we can. And I never thought 7 weeks later I'd be like this. I thought I'd have tubes flying out of me. I really didn't know. But wow, I'm walking, I'm going, I'm doing, limited, but, and so support group is amazing. It has worked big time for Sheldon. And now I can help other people as well through that conference we had. And I think the same thing applies here with your group, with the CDTRP. The same thing applies. And I can only encourage everybody to get involved in whatever way they can, and talk to people, pick up that phone, pick up this 200-pound device, because we don't think, we're scared. We're scared. I got the call on April 18th at about 6 p.m. and I had 2.5 hours to get to the hospital. That was the window. And I got there, scared as hell. And at 4 a.m., well, now the 19th, it was done. And I can just say, if I didn't have that pre-help and now the post-help and a chance to give back, so I can only encourage everybody that it works. I can tell you it works. So again, I want to thank you for this group. I want to thank you for the room. And I'm just going to sit back, listen, and get as much as I can out of this and be there to try and help when it's appropriate. Thanks again.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you, Sheldon, and welcome. I'm glad you've spent some time here with us today, and don't be surprised if you get an email from me afterwards. But welcome, and stay tuned. Sean.
Yeah, congratulations, Sheldon. That's amazing news, and he means it. He will email you. I would just relay. I know a few years ago when we were in Kelowna, talking about kind of the early stages of some of the patient engagement. I was really hard on the tokenism side, because if you know it when you feel it, but through my experience on one of the projects that Manuel was the matchmaker for, he'll guess which one. It's a heavy basic science project, and I think the flip side is not just researchers being informed about us and us being informed about the research process. It was, I got a really sincere thank you note from two trainees that are in a lab, and it was basically, I'm not I'm not a member of the Trilliums or the Ajmira transplant centers or all those kinds of things. I'm a basic scientist in a lab. I never see patients. I never see families. I never see donors. The fact that you took the time to do this means everything, because that's what inspires this work, and we're often the forgotten part of this. So I mean, also don't undervalue just your presence there as well, and cheering on what they're doing, because it's important. The project I'm talking about is about antibody mediated rejection, which we all think about, but the people who are doing the bench chemistry and microbiology and all the genetic testing and things like that. They don't see us, and they don't see always the thankfulness and the importance that we also lose sleep over the very issue that you're researching right now, and I think it's another key part of that piece is not just to be an equal and a researcher and all those kinds of things, but also to help cheer them on as well, because they're doing in many cases fantastic work.
Thanks for that, Sean. Can I follow up on something and maybe put you on the spot here? You say, apologies. You made a reference to like when you're in a project and it feels tokenistic, you just kind of feel it's tokenistic. Can you maybe for especially for our newer PFDs and folks who might not necessarily be involved in research, like what actions, what behaviors are on that? And I ask this question because I think sometimes, not sometimes, I mean, there are real power imbalances between PFDs and researchers, and that's part of this co-creation and the development of plans. So you're on equal footing, but perhaps sometimes there's I mean, in my early days of being a patient partner, I thought to myself, well, maybe this is just the way this is, or maybe this is just how the dynamics are, and it's not necessarily, or it should not be like that. So, what are some flags, let's call it that, you've seen?
Well, truly, I think the biggest flag, Lindsay already said, it's when you get a request for a letter of support on a project that's 98% written, and can I get a letter of support on this topic? Like that doesn't feel like you were a contributor in any way other than to say, "Yep, I read what you said." So there wasn't any collaboration up to that point, and so for me, that is often the biggest flag is bringing a patient partner in at the 11th hour because it needed a checkbox on the CIHR grant application. So that doesn't feel great. And I think just to be a bit forgiving, this is new for a lot of people too. No one, like, unless they are engaged with your team, Manuel, the CDTRP group, or other patient engagement agencies. Many people that didn't learn this through school, right? It's probably getting better and better with trainees now than those who were trained 10 and 20 years ago. But this is new for them, so there needs to be a bit of give and take and forgiveness there too. But if I do kind of get that feeling, I will turn it around often and say, "Hey, have you considered how patient engagement, should and could look? Here's how I've done it before with other researchers in the past. And if you do get the project funded, would you consider embedding not me, but other patients earlier on in the process?" So trying to handhold a little bit too. And I think those of us, Sandra, Lindsay, others that have been doing this for a lot of years, Don, I see you on the call too. We can help to guide those who I think aren't doing it out of being ignorant. I think they're just doing it out of ignorance. They don't know a good process for engaging us. And so, we can, those of us who've done this for a few years can actually help in hand holding those who obviously don't know. And especially when you sense that the motivation doesn't have malice in it or disinterest. It's more just they didn't realize they could or should have included us earlier.
Beautifully said, Sean. I appreciate that follow up, and also yes, like Lindsay, I thought your comment earlier was spot on. Where it's sometimes that is the reality, but that transparent communication where it's we're all frazzled, it's all last minute, but just being open and upfront about that, I think that's key, and sometimes get lost. Yinka, I see your hand is up. I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am in Calgary, Alberta. Just wanted to talk about support groups. This is my first time here, and I want to say thank you for this. Also to talk about the importance of support groups. We have a support group that we call the African Cancer Support Group. We support people of African descent going through cancer diagnosis. And this stemmed from lived experience. I'm a caregiver and also the co-founder of the organization. My husband had these stem cell transplants, and it was brutal. But thank God, 9 years later, he's doing well. And we've been able to support other people going through different types of cancer, because it's not just one type that we support. Support group is good because it makes people to come together. We just had an event last Saturday where we had over 300 people gathered because it was the National Cancer Survivor Day. So we do it every year, and we had over 300 people gathered, and we had survivors across Canada that came. So it was a good thing for people to come together to exchange connections and network. So I just wanted to say thank you. Even though this is my first time here, I just thought, let me say something. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Yinka, and very happy to have you here. As I said to Sheldon, don't be surprised if I follow up with you afterwards to get to know you a little bit more and get you engaged with the work that we do. Sandra, I see your hand is up.
Yeah. Excuse me. I just wanted to make a comment though, like support groups are great. It's not the role of CDTRP though, per se. CDTRP is about research, but what happens is when we get together for an annual scientific meeting, that's where the mentorship and the camaraderie and the friendships begin. But for every disease that's out there, like PBC, I know Sheldon mentioned that. Well, I had PSC where mostly men got it and they were 40 and I was 28 and female. So there you go. But when you go to these groups for support, right, what you should do is look at it from an advocacy point of view. So if, let's say, for example, PSC. PSC has a group called Primary Sclerosis Cholangitis, and it stands for Partners Seeking a Cure. And so we've got to this stage now that we are directing the research that's being done by a doctor named Gideon Hirschfield. And we're also finding out, we're also funding grants so that we can get the research that we want to do. So that's how that can happen. But I'll find most of the people that become involved in research or using their lived experience have already overcome their, not overcome, but are a bit further out from their transplant or from their experience, where they can then look at it from a different perspective. Because if we come to it, let's say, for example, we have donor families, right? If they come to it right away when they're raw from the grief of losing their loved one, or if we come from it after we've gone through our transplant and, there's might have been some, things that didn't go perfect, like you could have been out of the hospital sooner, or we picked up a hospital infection. It's once we get past that, and then we can look back and say, okay, how can I take all this lived experience and then help make change? And so your brain sort of starts thinking differently from, you're still the patient, but you're more like someone now that you have this lived experience. And lived experience, what that is a skill, right? And that skill makes you an equal partner at the table when it comes to researchers, right? So I liked what Sean said too, because the grant process isn't going to change. And Lindsay, if you get a week, that's great. I get 24 hours to 48 hours. But what I'm doing now is like, okay, sure, let me quickly look at it. But and I'm now able to look at it and put like the patient engagement part in, and I'll say like, these surveys, we're going to have them reviewed. You're going to need more patient partners involved. You're going to need focus groups and stuff. So, but also I'd be interesting to find out, and this is something a researcher might want to pick up, is how many grants are successful when they do engagement properly from the onset, when they're coming up with the concept, they're coming up with the idea, and they're implementing, their aims and their measurements and who's going to be involved. I would find that if it's done that way, they'd probably be more successful than try to start it, rushing it just to get, as we talk about, that checkbox. So lots of work that still needs to come from that, but I just thought I'd point out those couple little points there.
Thanks, Sandra. And that's interesting. That would be a really interesting metric to capture. And I wonder if that's something we can capture through our innovation grant as a first step. I see a couple hands up, but I also saw Christy. Christy, you had your hand up, and I hope me changing the slides didn't.
I did have my hand up, but then I
Mhm.
lowered it because you changed the slides.
No,
So I
no, it's
figured we
okay.
were
That's
moving
okay. Please.
on.
No. Please continue.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning to everyone on the West Coast and Alberta. And then, of course, you and the East Coast are all preparing for lunch. I just wanted to add to the previous point around what worked well, what was successful. And I often find it's when we have realistic expectations as well. I'm always one to really aim high. I strive for high standards from a lot of researchers, but I think it's understanding where they're coming from as well. But what I found has worked best is when our scientists and the clinician researchers really come with a sense of humility and openness. And they want to get to know us a little bit more than just sort of tick those boxes or get on with things. Because a lot of times they're not understanding or clear what engagement, what meaningful engagement can actually look like and involve. And so I've often found when they come to that sort of relationship with a patient, family, or donor partner, it's much more productive because we're able to have that open discussion and communication around what both of us is hoping to achieve, what both of us want to get from this engagement opportunity. And that can actually lead into a lot, I think, of opportunities. I know, for instance, for me and things along those lines, there's been things that I've been interested in doing in a project that those investigators were really surprised about. They didn't realize that that was something that a patient, family, donor, partner would want to do, or how could they do it, but they were flexible and willing to really explore that with me. So I'll just leave that there and yeah, I will stop there.
Thanks so much, Christy, and your comments really bring to the forefront what our very good friend Mary used to say about partnerships and friendships. And I was just reminded yesterday through an email of what Mary would often say, that building partnerships and especially in patient engagement, 75% is just that relationship building. That's the crux of it. That's what you need. And then you do the work, but building that foundation is so key to this work. So thank you for that. Kirsty, I see your hands up.
Yeah, hello. I'm going to speak, build a little bit on what Christy said from a patient perspective, patient partner perspective. And I think for me, when I first started participating and as a patient, I felt like a fish out of water. I really didn't know what to do. So there was something that I needed to do to be ready to participate. And that was to be mentored, to learn even just how to introduce myself and I think, gain clarity on what my role was as a patient partner. And in that I could find my voice, and in that I could feel certainly more prepared and confident, but also articulate in what my role was and what I needed in order to participate. So sort of taking charge of who I was in the project and what I really hoped for. And I think because there's a lot of people new to patient engagement, that as a patient, I felt if I can support them to understand better what my role is and how to engage with me, I found it really helpful. It took me a while, and it was actually quite challenging to find supports as a patient partner to understand what is my role, what do I do, how do I enter this world where I have a lot to say and I want to be heard. So how do I do that? So I think maybe supports or mentorship for people that are becoming patient partners would be really helpful. I had a hard time finding those people, and I see that in this room there's some really strong advocates for that. So that's great. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. No, thank you for those comments and an excellent segue to our next set of questions. Very spot on. And Lindsay, I see you had your hand up, so maybe I'll turn it over to you.
Just very quickly, I think get my brain and my mouth working here, sorry. Many principal investigators, when they finally start engaging with patient partners, are actually pleasantly surprised, maybe even a little stunned, at how sophisticated the partners are when it comes to the disease process and what is involved. That's that whole lived experience. And it comes from us having to be our own advocates as we've gone through this long-term health issue, or as a caregiver, supporting our person as they go through this process. And yeah, it's an eye-opening experience for some scientists that we do know so much. It's like Katie says, we can sometimes make suggestions that they never thought of. But the other thing is, the nice thing about CDTRP is as an umbrella group for patient partners, there are so many distinct disease groups that we encompass, and we all have similar experiences that we can bring to the table. So it doesn't matter what the history is. Bring your experience, share it. And the more you get involved, the more you learn. And then again, it just keeps repeating itself. And I'm blathering, sorry.
I have something to add, Manuel. Do we have any researchers on the call today?
You know, I just saw your comment, and I was gonna say ask the same. Let me just quickly look here.
I was gonna do a LinkedIn message to say this is happening today. Where are our researchers? But one of the original abstracts I sent in for CES CDTRPASM, there you go, annual scientific meeting. I like to be able to demonstrate a successful relationship between a patient partner and their research team. There are a few examples of that that's happening and what's happening out there. But I really do see, and I think I'll make a commitment as a member of the PFD platform leadership team, that we do need tools and we need specific things there. Like, for example, there's lots of information on, you know, what a patient should be doing to prepare. I can think of lots of lists that I've seen before. What's the researcher role? How to set up the research? What areas that you can be involved in that? And I think that we should to share those. I personally felt like, you know, I was, to be honest with you, thrown into the water and say, hey, swim. And, you know, I was really wanting to be part of this and I really wanted to do it. So I self-taught myself a lot of things and continue to self-teach myself a lot. So there is that expectation too, as well, to continue learning. But if we could get some and even a basic science thing, Lindsay and Manuel and I were on a call, and I don't know if anyone remembers the after school specials, how a bill becomes a law. Well, it's like how a grant becomes a research project and the steps that are taken. And I think that more that we understand it, and I'm at the point now that, you know, if we understand that, and then what happens with the research, and also understanding the amount of time that it takes to do a research project. But then also the other things that that patients and community and citizens want is you call it knowledge mobilization or knowledge translation. But, you know, there's things out there that, you know, that are published where, you know, you're a co-author on it and you still can't access it, which is frustrating. And then there's no, like, maybe the researcher gets to go to a conference and show their paper. But other than that, and we're all sitting here going, okay, well, we just spent all that time on the research. When is it going to go into clinic? When are we going to see the impact of this happening? So I think CDTRP could play a role in seeing that that happens using our partners like Canadian Transplant Association, Liver Foundation, Kidney Foundation to get that information out. Because I think that's very important. So,
Thank you, Sandra. Donna?
Oh, I agree very much with what you just said, Sandra. It would be very helpful to have some of that posted on the portal so that we understand how we can contribute, what we're committing to, timelines. I actually just sent an email, I think, to Manuel, Geetha, someone actually, it was just yesterday because I kind of just resurfaced after being busy for a while. And it was suggesting maybe having a workshop for doing your CV so that researchers maybe having that I think I said this once before, but I don't think it was it got kind of run in a different direction. We all know about dating apps. Why can't we have a little section that would allow the researchers to look through PFDs so they know what they're interested in, maybe what experiences they might have, so they can select people. It's just a thought. To me, it makes sense, but I know that's a whole nother website and everything that happens. But it would be nice to have some of these training that you mentioned, even a workshop to help write our CV so we know what's to be on it, because I got a request, but I was in the middle of doing something else. I couldn't, and by the way, so-and-so will be in contact you to get your CV. Well, that's great, but that's not a priority for me right now. I just couldn't say yes, even though I'm really interested and would really like to. And I don't even think I could wrap my head around writing a letter of support right now, which is probably the minimum I could do to make that project work. So I still want to be involved, but I'm not sure what I can do to help. So having examples of the types of things we can do to assist researchers and be involved would be perfect.
I'd just jump in, Donna, and say, I don't know about the Ontario SPORE unit, but Alberta SPORE unit, their website, they actually have a list of projects. You go onto the patient portal, they have a list of projects that they're looking for patient partners for. Maybe something like that would be helpful. And it could be done in the reverse, research patient partners available for research.
It would be really, it would be really cool to see the CDTRP members, both researchers, patient, family, and donors, having their own little profiles.
Right.
I'll respond to that if you don't mind, Manuel. So one of the groups that I worked with, this is called the Center Digital Health Evaluation. And a lot of times we would go to meetings and there would be we always had 2 or 3, we would call ourselves patient partner evaluators. We were evaluating certain things like, let's say, for example, AI Scribe. And so you'd be on a meeting and there'd be all these people that are on the call, and a lot of them don't have their cameras on. And then when we would go to the big meeting, we would have people from Ontario Health and Ontario Minister of Health there. So after doing this for a few years, we gave some feedback, and the feedback was that the researchers and the patient partner evaluators, we would do a one-page bio of ourselves. And it would just be like what we're interested, but it also would show 3 things like that about us personally. And so what happens is now when we get on a project, we get a list that shows, here's all the people that are going to be on it. This is their titles. And then this is patient partner evaluators. And then before the first meeting, we all had these bios that came. And the first meeting was all about just getting to know each other and talk. And, this is very much the way that the Indigenous people do this. It's building that trust and building your team, right? Instead of jumping into a meeting and then you're like, oh, okay, that person's talking. What's their role? And you're like, oh, well, they're from Ontario Health. Oh, yeah, well, they gave us a contract. Of course, they're going to be wanting to have that information, right? So I think that's something that we could do. I don't know if it's like something we can facilitate on a website. It costs money, but, it's a good idea.
These are all excellent suggestions, and something that we collectively as the PFD platform leadership can take back and discuss. I will quickly mention, Donna, I think your idea of a workshop on how to write CVs is an excellent idea. A couple of years ago, probably 2 years ago, we did host the workshop, and it's still on it's on the portal and on YouTube, of how to do your ResearchNet administrative pieces, right? Getting your CIHR PIN, applicant profile, and all those pieces. But there's changes, right? So recently, CIHR has rolled out a new CV format. So I think it's really timely, and that's something that I hadn't had on my radar, but I think it's something that'll be really useful as we involve more PFDs in our grant process. Unfortunately, that is the end of our session. This is a fantastic conversation. I wish we can keep going, but Lindsay, I will pass it off to you just to close it out. And thank you for your contributions, of course.
As Manuel said, this has been a really good discussion. We weren't sure if we'd have to deal with thundering silence. We should know better. Interesting points have been brought up, and with Sandra and I in this new role as PFD co-leads, we're going to be taking all of this to heart, because this is what we want to push for, is improvement in supporting partners, keeping people involved, and then hopefully being able to assist in expanding their roles. Sandra, do you have any last comments?
No, I think it's good, but I think this is just a start. I think we need to do this more often. We need to meet more as PFD platform. I think we need to be able to maybe have a platform where we can communicate more often and share our ideas. I don't know if there's I don't think there's an opportunity to do that on the patient portal, right? Like some kind of forum. But we need to find a way to continue to share our ideas and coming up with ways. And and if anyone comes across tools that they think are handy, or websites and that they think that our members could learn from, I know that I will be shooting off a bunch of things that I have to Manuel and see if we can get them added to our website. But I think it's really good. I like to be honest with you. I would have liked to see more people fill out the survey. I like to have seen more researchers attend today. So how do we make that happen? And but overall, this was a great session. But again, I'll be honest with you, I think it's just a step forward in continuing to do what we're doing.
You are the Canadian Donation and Transplantation Research Program. You are CDTRP.
The CDTRP is a network of more than 400 clinicians, senior, mid, and early career researchers, trainees, patient, family, and donor partners, and 100 partner organizations. Our network has supported 275 collaborative research projects and has mobilized research into policy change, legislation, commercial products, and improved knowledge for patients, families, and donors. Every year, CDTRP supports between $30 to $40 million in grant applications, something around 60 to 70 individual applications. You are CDTRP. These achievements wouldn't be possible without your hard work.
CDTRP Research Services is a platform that supports principal investigators to develop high-quality research in donation and transplantation. We work hand in hand with CDTRP investigators to maximize the effectiveness of research teams through support with funding development, project management, patient, family, and donor partnership, knowledge mobilization, events, and trainee support. Across the 5 research themes, we help teams mobilize new knowledge to ensure patient-family donors, healthcare systems, partners, and stakeholders equitably benefit from research results.
If you are a basic scientist and would like support with your knowledge mobilization plan, if you are a busy clinician scientist with limited time for research but would like to run a multi-site study, if you are an early career researcher and looking for collaborators to help with your grant applications, if you value patient, family, and donor engagement but are not sure how to find the right patient partners or what role they will have in your project, if you don't have full-time research staff but need support,
We are here to help. Our experienced management team can support you at every stage of your research in donation and transplantation.
Now you are probably thinking, how can I request CDTRP Research Services support? The answer is simple. Go to the CDTRP Research Services Platform website, fill out the form to request support, and we will get in touch with you to discuss your needs. That's it.
We.
No.
Noi.
Nos.
Emis.
Nosotros.
Menk.
Kiano.
We. Kiano.
Our CDTRP, and we will drive research advances so that every wish to donate is fulfilled and transplantation becomes a lasting and sustainable cure.
You are CDTRP.
Email us today.